everybody, welcome to this week's episode of Be My Guest, episode 16. Can you believe it? Our sweet 16 episode is here. We are going to celebrate the way that we do every week by telling you another great hospitality story. Our guest today comes from, once again, the Hospitality Family Facebook group, which we've talked about on this show in the past. If you are in hospitality and you are on Facebook and you are not part of the Hospitality Family Facebook group, you need to get into it. It's a great resource to meet people, get support, find jobs, ask questions about systems. I saw someone posting about MGS being down and so many people came to help. It's really just a great community. So it's about 60,000 people strong. You got to be part of that. If you are not part of it, get on it, assuming you're part of Facebook. If you're not, that's fine too. But with all of that said, we're also going to have Sarissa Olson coming on in the next few weeks to talk about the group, about her hospitality story, because she is one of the co-founders of the Hospitality Family Facebook group. So make sure you check that one out. But today's guest is a really great guest for two reasons. One, he's got a great hospitality story to tell. I'm looking forward to hearing it. But two, his name is one I can pronounce, which has not been as easy for a lot of the other guests. So Philip David is our guest today, and his last name being David, my first name being David. It really translates well into my language. I can say it very easily. So no one of these awkward conversations as I'm trying to figure out how to say the name prior so I get it just perfectly. He just makes my life that much easier. So Philip, let's bring you in right away, because you know what? You have earned the right to save some time, as I'm not trying to foobar your name at the top of the show. So how are you, my friend?
Very good. Great, David. I'm glad you could have two first names to deal with today.
It's one of those unforeseen challenges of podcasting. You don't want to mess up someone's name, but when it's one of those names you can't pronounce too easily, it's like, what do you do?
Everyone calls me David first, and I've, Philip, and my middle initial's S, so it's David Phillips my whole life. So you can call me what you want.
to be honest, I almost called you David when I brought you on. I'm not going to lie. So I had to catch myself.
All day long, I get David, so it's okay.
But, we're in hospitality. We got to go with the flow, right? And, whether you call me Philip, David, John, Jim, I'm going to help your request. So with that said, Philip, let's hear your hospitality story. How did you get into the industry?
So just growing up in the family, my father was a French chef trained in the Loire Valley. My godparents, my godfather was also trained in the Loire Valley. Him and my godmother owned a 3-star French restaurant called the Petit Marmite in New York City. Never really had wanted to growing up little go into the field. It's a difficult challenge. Personally, I mean, not really business wise to me, but. I didn't see my dad that often and my godparents, so they're always working. It's a busy industry and it's a very dedicated situation. So, my first love was to be an aeronautical engineer. I wanted to go to the University of St. Louis and build airplanes. But, I needed to get a car. I needed to, 15, 16, I had to save some money. And my dad was a regional chef for a company and one not far from my home on Long Island. And my father got me a busboy job because I needed to get money and save for a car. My parents weren't in the position where I had to earn everything we needed. So I became a busboy, then I became a waiter, and next thing I know was whatever the manager needed me to do, because I reported to her, but she reported to my dad, so I had to be in good faith there. So I just fell in love with the business, and next thing I knew, my sister was at Johnson & Wales College in Providence, and I went up to visit her, and she said, the great hospitality program. And next thing I know, I applied and spent 4 great years and graduated the hospitality degree.
That's yours, again, a story that we talk about a lot, in the sense of people don't necessarily want to get into it originally. They fall into it. Now, that a lot of times happens at an older age. Yours happened younger, right, in your high school years. And so you were able to kind of make that transition and go through school.
Well, the transition, from high school to college was I was really in the service side, hands-on from busboying. I even washed dishes whenever the chef needed me. He was, my dad was his boss, and George was a great chef, and I learned a lot. And I just got excited by, the people, with working with staff and fun people and nice people, and also, just being hospitably nice and learning and loving the business from a nature standpoint. And, just enjoyed it. Something, you just feel the passion inside. And I think it just grew from there. My transition to college, as you take college courses and going to Johnson & Wales was a very good thing. We were hands-on university, took some culinary classes, and we had a hotel that we had our internship program with.
Mhm.
So, you know, when you get that active and you get that, you know, that energy drew from that college. So it was, and it's excited to be one of the best hospitality schools in the country even today. So, so that transition was pretty easy for me. And then coming from a good school, you know, I was interviewed. We did interviews before we graduated, and I started work at the Grand Hyatt for the Hyatt Corporation 3 days after graduation. I had a job before I graduated, which was great. You know, it's
Very
exciting.
awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what got you to where you currently are? So you come out of school, you're at the Grand Hyatt, you're moving along here. So how do you transition from the Grand Hyatt to what you're currently doing today?
So I, you know, always challenging myself, being positive. Love the business. Went from, you know, from assistant executive steward, youngest executive steward in the back of the house at the Grand Hyatt to working my way through the front of the house, which I wanted to be. I didn't really want to be in the back of the house. Worked with great companies. I was at the restaurants at Rockefeller Center, did 7 tree lightings. I was a partner with Fuzi's, an Italian bistro concept. We went from 0 to 20 restaurants, was a regional vice president and a shareholder. Then I, you know, 20 years ago, I met my challenge. I went through corporate positions. I went through owners, you know, partnership positions. And I said, let me challenge myself. I think I know, and I'm confident enough without ego to start my own consulting business, because a lot of people, you know, one of my ex-bosses from Restaurant Associates was opening a restaurant in Midtown, and and I was thinking about it, and he's the one who pushed me over the edge to actually quit my job and start PSD Hospitality. So, you know, I started opening restaurants, started doing franchise work, and you know, one thing, you know, I was middle of one contract, opening the Times Square Brewery in Midtown, which is right at Times Square, which was my first real consulting gig of opening a restaurant, and then I got a call to do some franchise work for Gallagher Steakhouse, which I did. And that contract from year to year for 12 years, which was great. And I just kept doing operational consulting, really what I call. So I also did revitalizations. And throughout the last 21 years, I've done everything from open concept development to, you know, I call them revitalization, the turnarounds, you know, no TV show. I've been on TV. I don't need TV, but to me, that's the most exciting part of what we do, is helping people. You know, my kind of slogan is my success is in your bottom line. So, you know, I love the thing of creativity, marketing, fun, creative promotions, but helping people in our business get to the next level, or just get out of survival mode and get into. So the last 21 years, basically from opening restaurants, franchising, I've done everything from SOP manuals, you know, for some of the nice hotels in the city. You know, done some hotel work, mostly restaurant work, but I just enjoyed it. So, you know, and there's now, you know, transitioning from this COVID era, you know, there's a whole new, you know, a whole kind of new game plan. Because even though it's going to be short-lived, you know, we pray and we hope, and we've been through a tough 21. So I think with the vaccine and the political side, I think that's all going to kind of transition to a positive. So I feel, you know, it's not going to happen right away in 2021, but I think it's going to be, there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and we just have to, now it's COVID driven, and it's changed our industry. Has changed our industry. I always look at the positive, David. It's for the positive. Restaurants now have, some only want to work with, you know, focus on fine dining or casual dining or full service, as we call it, depending on what level. Now they have to do that, and people have, you know, obviously had to stress on delivery, takeout, and transform themselves into that, you know. So that's interesting. And will it go away? I think people, you know, I think restaurateurs now realize that this is another revenue arm that they didn't want to pay attention, or they're happy. People get comfort, and I like to bring people out of that comfort zone, because, you know, you're there to make money. You're now it's going to be a very competitive world, I think, in the second half of 2021, because you're going to be fighting for that delivery takeout, and you're going to run a restaurant. You know, it doesn't matter what it's a QSR or you know, fine dining. So, you know, you have, Can you make up what you lost? Probably not, but you at least learn. People learn in our business. You see the transformation. I mean, just look at New York City. People building all these beautiful outside, these beautiful, beautiful outside dining facilities that in Manhattan, and you have 50% inside, 25%. It's a learning period, and it's great. Even though it's a struggle, and some people have lost their whole lives on this, which is terrible, which kills me. Um, and it's due to the pandemic. But as long as we learn and people can reach out and understand that the restaurant world was excellent and the hotel world was excellent, but now it's a whole eye-opening experience. It's a whole, and unfortunately for the pandemic that it came about. But on the other side, and something I've refocused my business on is the transition of new investments. I mean, unfortunately, there are the real estate market, unfortunately, has really dissipated and really taken a big hit. It probably will go through 2021, and it's already down 22%. But the opportunity for investors, even individuals, to take over a lease and renegotiate a lease, and I think it's probably going to be closer to spring, summertime to even think about you want to do that. But it's scaling back, and lease is going to be cheaper, unfortunately. But unfortunately for the landlord, but for the business owner, if you and I open a restaurant, the lease will be a lot more flexible in price point, which will be easier to open a restaurant. And so I think I've teamed up with a funding group, a hospitality funding group, and we're looking for for property and or small companies that want not just going out of business, not necessarily, but we call it growth equity money. So if you have 10 or 12 restaurants and you want to pay some bills and grow your business for 2021 and 2022 and moving forward and do 20 or 30 more restaurants, that's kind of where I've now driven my focus as a consultant to help people get out of this mess, as we call it, recapitalization, or take them out of bankruptcy before they go. People call me now and say, I might not make it. All right, so I can help. I have that arm now, which is great, which is really exciting.
So let's talk about that for a second. So you make a great point that, we've talked about this in the past. This is a great time for new opportunities, for new challenges. So what if I'm somebody, I use myself as an example. I'm somebody, and we're going to focus on restaurants because that seems to be kind of where you lie in. If I'm somebody who wants to, maybe I worked in restaurants my whole life, I've been a server, I've been a manager, I've been a bartender, whatever it happens to be, and I have a concept I really want to develop. And I've never been able to because either I didn't have time, didn't have money, didn't have whatever. But now I want to use this time to develop that concept. But I'm not someone who has $200,000 in the bank. How would I potentially go about starting to develop that concept and start making that dream come true as these real estate prices are in a place they probably haven't been in the last 20 years?
Well, so for individual like you and I that want to do our own thing, and me again, to get investment money, the investment money I'm talking about is bigger, like the larger group money. But people start with friends and family money. That's how you can start. It depends on the concept. Region, the location. Location is key, of course, but your concept has to fit in that location. There's a lot of errors that people make, and I try. I hopefully have helped many people not make that mistake. But I think back to your question, David. Your concept, to me, where you want to have a restaurant, not necessarily the concept. So here's what I'm trying to say. Like I live here in Long Island. If I see a town that's missing, I'm going to use French because I'm French background, and there's lack of good French restaurants, French American. We can so let's find the town. Let's look at the town and say what's missing from this town. What concept? We can do restaurants. We're here to make money, right? So there's mostly Italian restaurants. That's the biggest concept out there, Italian restaurants, for many good reasons, besides great food and great food costs, and acceptability to the market. But let's open a restaurant that's not there. Maybe it's if there's lack of a French, like there aren't many French restaurants in my area. There's very successful ones, but let's do a French American bistro that's moderate price that could survive. To me, you got to survive another pandemic or another crisis, another recession. So let's make it kind of recession pandemic proof. We could do that through price point or depends on the concept. So, starting up a restaurant, David, to me is easy. I've opened 31 restaurants. The big fail though, David, is undercapitalization and inexperience. People out of our business, number one, coming into our business not knowing anything, think they know everything, or enough to open. But mostly 89 out of 100 restaurants fail the first year. 89 out of 100. That's not a good ratio. Most of that is on people opening restaurants with no money in the bank, no working capital. And if I could stress to anyone, I have an easy formula to survive. You got to survive the first year. Just figure it out. The first 6 months are the toughest. You have to, of course, give great service, great food. It's got to fit your concept. You have to be marketable. But working capital is key. People go out of business because they don't have enough working capital, or any. I mean, people open a restaurant with no money. I just fathomably don't understand it.
So what could I do if I'm in that position where I do want to bring something to market? Maybe I have enough capital to open, but how am I, if I don't know, how am I supposed to know how much capital I should need? Can I just do some research? Is there a kind of a ballpark number?
Okay. So based on the concept you want to actually, depending on the segment of the concept, being ultra fine dining to quick serve or quick casual.
Let's say I want to open up a generic 3-star type of restaurant that serves French American food, which will put for you, it seats about 70 people in a medium scale market. Not that you need to give me an exact number, but how could I go about getting an understanding of what I truly need to get through that first year?
Okay, so there's 2 phases. The pre-opening, I call them pre-opening expenses, the money you need to open day one and carry yourselves with working capital. And number 2 is doing a pro forma based on those 70 seats, 3-star French American, the price point of your concept being in that region, $70, $80, $90, $100 a person, with a 70-30 food to beverage ratio. You could, and then it comes down to table turn, how many meals are you serving per day? So I have it's one of the things I do, and it's great, and have a full proof right down to a schedule of a bartender to the cook line to the hot, from garde manger, right down to hourly per person, which goes right into my pro forma. So understanding your pro forma of year one, because year one is the hardest, and you should show an escalation of revenue. First of all, the first 90 days, 120 is honeymoon period, David. Your restaurant, you do it right. You have a good chef. You're going to get the curious people like, wow, it's a new restaurant, David's restaurant. Let's go. That happens. So your peak goes up. Your revenue goes up. Now it'll always come down a little after the curiosity because everyone's tried it or the people want. But the key element is to go back up to a swing because you're doing great, and the word of mouth is taking over. I mean, advertising, social media, all that is great, but the word of mouth is your biggest drive. So, the pro forma phase, I would show you how. I mean, I have an incredible one, but I would say, David, we need to do a 3-year projection.
Okay. So we talk about the actual physical capital needed, but we talk about in this show a lot of discussion about entrepreneurial mindsets, whether you're just looking for a job or actually looking to open up a new business. So maybe just as importantly, if not maybe more importantly, and you can answer this, is the mental capital, the mental capacity to push through challenges and hurdles. So as someone who has started their own business and been successful in that endeavor and then opened up and helped other people open up their own endeavors, what do you think is the most important thing from a mental standpoint for someone who is trying to challenge themselves and get outside of their typical comfort zone?
Well, mentally, you're right, David. It's probably more challenging to be mentally tough and positive. All right, so the positive aspect has to be there. Number one, prepare yourself for the unexpected. The unforeseen will happen. It will happen. I opened a restaurant in Tampa. we were going through training, staff training, and in Tampa in the summer is very hot. So the tonnage of air conditioning was good, but not sufficient. There was a secondary 30-ton was the primary, 7.5-ton was the 30-ton went out. So 7.5 tons of air conditioning for 4,000 square foot restaurant is not sufficient in Tampa. So we had to shut down for 10 days to get a new one, craned over the roof. So you have to, it's going to have, something's going to happen. I mean, just have that money, unforeseen money in your budget, and depends on how much your opening budget is, but you have to be mentally tough you have to expect that. So it shouldn't be, oh my God, what do I do? It's like, okay, I have the 30,000. I got to call Crane. We're going to call my GC. We're going to get something here. Let's move on. What's next? Let's just maintain the positive thought. It's a challenge. There's a solution. Make it happen. Where then a lot of people just complain about it. Don't complain. You have full control. We're in America. We have the best country in the world. We have all the resources in the world. So you just have to, things happen, even staffing, so you got to be prepared for that. And every restaurant you open, you overstaff because there's fallout. And then, there's people that just don't show up and whatever. So you should know it's going to happen. There's certain things we know opening a restaurant will happen.
So what did you do in your career as you're developing things? And you've come across challenges with your own personal profession, your own personal career, your own personal business. What have you done to get through them yourself?
So when I first started, I said, I'm going to be consultant, do everything. All right. So here I am thinking, I can do everything and make money. So one of the things I started, besides opening a restaurant in Times Square and doing Gallagher Steakhouse franchising, I also did recruiting, executive search. All right. So, which was a mistake on my part, but I was aggressive. I work hard. I stay up all hours a night trying to find chefs and managers and general managers and hotel managers, whatever. But after a while, which was a short while, I realized you do all that work and you don't get compensated until you find someone. No one, in recruiting today, no one signs an exclusive. So, if the HR director finds the person, I just spent 3 weeks of 30 hours a week trying to, network, call, spend some money actually out of pocket to do, some online stuff. So I just dropped that. I just said, you know what? I have to move on. I got to refocus on finding new clients for what I do best: opening restaurants, revitalization, turnovers, and training programs. So, and franchise work. So you just refocus and stay to the path. Stay to your own path. Be true to yourself. So, I think that's one of my great. I haven't had too many others because I really remember that you going into that recruiting side was I made a few placements. It's great money, but I'd rather focus my time in finding other clients.
Well, I want to touch on that for a sec because I think that's a great point. We've talked about this show a lot about the positivity, staying positive, going out and getting something, expanding your horizon, challenging yourself, and making things happen. But you bring up a great point that, at some point there are times, and it could be multiple times in your life, that you have to reassess, look at yourself honestly, and maybe cut off because it's not working properly. And that could be with starting a company, that could be in a job search, it could be in a position that you're currently in. So let's talk about that for a second. And how did you kind of go through that process of saying, you know what, this isn't working, it's not going to work, I'm going to cut it off right now and not send good effort after bad money?
So you have to, first of all, financially gives you the answer most of the times, right? Because, you realize that you put this time and effort and your experience. There's value to what you've done, your experience, David, in the hotel world, and there's value to that. It's not money you put in the bank, but to yourself, it's something that I could spend more time finding new clients. So you have to be true to yourself. Refocus. So I'll give you another example. The recession, 2008-9, was brutal. Brutal for who wants to talk to an advisor, consultant when people going out of business, people struggling. That was a very difficult time in the middle of, from 2000 to now, we're almost in the middle. And I had very great success from 2000 to 2008. If it wasn't for the recession, I could have now not been a one-man show. I didn't want to grow too big, but I wanted to add 2 or 3 people to help me do some consulting, and the recession just, I had 2 great clients. Gallagher Steakhouse was my franchise. They bought me out. I had an annual contract. The owner actually gave me a piece of the franchise business. Next thing you know, the recession hits, pays me out, done. So oh my God. So what do I do? The only option I had at that time, because I fought, I talked to all my previous clients. Just remember that time of situation and recession was brutal. It was very brutal. I mean, people personally in businesses similar to now, but in a different way. So I was very fortunate to get a call from a recruiter that asking me to consider taking this very big job, and which I did for a year and a half, and that kind of got me through the recession, which was an amazing job. I actually was the senior director of at the United Nations it was great. So United Nations, even though the United States was in a recession, and there's recessions around the world, but that's still, the UN was the UN. So great experience, by the way, unbelievable, 193 nations, crazy, great fun. But then, you know what I missed? Then I saw things change around, back into the consult. I had people call me to, again, I had 8 years of success of opening, franchising, business. I write business plans. People call me and like you want to open a restaurant, write a business plan, concept development, try to help you raise money, even though I didn't at the time, which I do now. So that was a tremendous time for me. Personally, it was difficult because you kind of lose all your clients, and then you have to say, what do I do? I was very fortunate. I was going to remodel myself, but then I remodeled myself after I realized I didn't want to work for anybody. I didn't work for anyone but myself for 8 years. And then the opportunity started coming back again. So I said, okay, this is my main focus. I'm going to stay what I do best, stay what you do, best. And I really expanded, try to go more towards not just franchise work, because I also did Patsy's Fine Dining on West 52nd, the only Patsy's. So we opened in Atlantic City Hilton, which is phenomenal. And that was my focus: restaurant openings, business plans, training programs, and try to do revitalizations. Revitalizations, as some people call turnarounds, are easy to do because it's very obvious what's wrong, and everyone's different. And I don't mention them because some of them are unfortunately not around, and some of them are healthy and worked really well before the pandemic. But those are we should talk about, if you let me, revitalizations, because people don't realize they have trouble. They're blindsided. They're tunnel vision. There's tunnel vision, and and even in moderately successful restaurants, where people just getting by. And I'm not saying I could make the millionaires, but knowing what I know and the experience I've had, front of house and back of the house, and being an owner myself, people mismanage money. They mismanage. They don't know how to handle a P&L, and they don't, in a good way, not a bad way. There's people that do funny things, and I don't like that. I don't deal with that. But revitalizations are always the same thing: mismanagement, no management, poor controls, poor purchasing, no training, hire anyone. They're all very basic, And even the owners, like, oh, I always buy from this vendor, and no one, price bids. I mean, why don't you price bid? You don't have to be, you want to be loyal to your vendors, but you also have to tell them, like, I'm not gonna buy all my meat from you. I have 3 vendors. You're gonna get a piece of everything. Everyone, and that's, it's how we did it at Gallagher's. We, prime steak, the best steak, and we had 3 approved vendors, and thank God, because when the BSC happened, there was no meat, prime beef on the market. There was limited, and we were a big volume house. So two of my meat vendors said, I could only give you like 5% of what I gave you, which is nothing. So thank God I had a 3rd vendor. But revitalizations are what people need, and they don't know it. And I, it's really.
As you've been doing all this stuff, right, and you're going to all these different places, have these great experiences, and you get into Gallagher's, you go into the UN, so you're kind of, I'm not saying you're not job hopping, but you're just taking on different challenges, which I think is awesome. At any point, were you scared? Were you scared that this may not work out?
I don't know if scared is I think, no, I have to say it just drove me more. It just drove me to say, um, first of all, you have to stay positive. Otherwise you could really, lose your mind. So, and you have a family and everything. So I think the positivity saying, all right, listen, it's a tough time. Don't sit in the chair, stay up, do what you got to do. I mean, work hard to find business, like getting out of the UN and restarting kind of the whole thing after recession it's really restart from like almost starting over. So that, even though I had a couple phone calls to say, hey, I need this and can you do this? And I decided to do it, but it's really just staying positive and not losing focus. Just stay positive. One door closes, two open, right? And that's it's true. But if you get into the negativity, I here's one of my sayings, one of my mottos of life, but it's also business. Positive thinking brings positive results. If and a lot of people say, oh, well, not everything works out, but you have to drive. Ben Franklin, drive thy business, or it will drive thee. And those are his famous sayings, but it's very true today. Drive your business. Don't stop. You could, and listen, you could have 20 failures or 20 things that didn't work for you. Could be 50 things that didn't work for you. But 51 or 21 could be the door that just opened. So you got to, without throwing things against the wall, if you sit in the chair and cry, then you're not going to make it. So.
I love that. And that goes back to a theme of a lot of shows we've had is mindset, right? It's what's your mindset? How is your mindset being portrayed? Are you seeing everything glass half full or glass half empty? And a lot of times that can be the difference. The situation may be the same exact situation, but the way you look at it is what drives the difference between it being something that steps you up or steps you back. And a lot of people have that fear of failure, whether it be, again, starting a business, applying for a new job, maybe looking into a new industry. So let's say I'm someone who really is I'm a glass half empty type of guy. And I have that fear of failure. And I'm someone that I'm scared to step out of my comfort zone because I don't want to fail. What would you, as someone who has taken all these opportunities and taken these challenges, aside from just staying positive, because I know I want to stay positive. I want to be positive, but for whatever reason, I'm not. What would you tell me to do? What are some skills or some things I can do to try to learn some of those skills?
Well, I think mentality isn't really a skill. I mean, I would tell you, David, and I know you're not like that. I would try to mentor you to say, all right, listen. First of all, having fear is a natural. We all have, there's always a little. I always had a little fear, but it might have lasted 5 seconds. Say, you know what? Fear's not going to get me a new client, or I got to think outside the box. I got to sit down, piece of paper, say what avenues, what haven't I tried, who haven't I called. Just keep going. Just your own, brainstorm session to yourself, or bring, a family member and help you. Just what haven't I covered? Where haven't I been to get new clients, or just analyze what has failed. Listen, most people are successful by your failures, right? So you learn more by failures and what hasn't worked in restaurants, and not failed to bankruptcy or anything, but failed like, oh my God, I tried changing a new menu and my food cost went up. Oh my God, we got to change this right away. That was a mistake, So what happened to me, and that was a true that happened. And now how do I restructure a menu? So I wrote something in a magazine, a food service magazine, on menu engineering, because I wanted to say, well, how did I fail? I can't let this happen again. I can't bring this to clients. I have to learn by menu engineering. How do I place things? What font? Where do we put the price points? Where do we put the chicken? Does the chicken go? How do we make this 1-page menu, 2-page? You have to really get creative in your mindset. So I think it's how I would attack people being fierce. Is, listen, I understand you have fear. We get it. We're all scared a little bit, but let's think of how we could solve this, because it's a challenge, and let's think of solutions. And honestly, if you start writing down solutions, they might not, any of them might not work, but at least you've tried and eliminated them, and you can move forward, and you've done something. You didn't sit there and say, "Oh my God, this isn't this isn't working." That could only last a few seconds, because the end result, if you keep doing that, David, then you're done. So I think mindset and just being motivating and inspiring. If that was me to you, I'd say, David, listen, I get it. We're scared. We have a family. We have a mortgage. I get it. But let's roll up our sleeves, take your jacket off. Let's take a piece of paper out. Let's just yell it out loud and say, what do we do now? And how what do you want to do? What's your strength? Work on your strengths, work on your weaknesses more, but let's drive your strengths. So let's take that. And a lot of times that's the solution. That's how you get the fear out of people. I think. I've seen it. Say, listen, there's only time we can cry later. We got to keep being positive. We got to keep thinking outside the box. And I just always had that mentality.
I love that. And you can use that mindset. And I guess I'll piggyback off of that. So now something that I'm sure as a business owner and as someone who has taken on several projects, you've faced at some point, something that whether, again, it be an opening of a business, whether it be looking for clients, whether it be searching for jobs, something that can feed that fear of failure is rejection. So have you faced a lot of rejection in your business endeavors, and how have you gotten through that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Listen, first of all, understand you're going to get rejection. Listen, for every proposal I've written, you could write 50 proposals and get 2 contracts. It's just, you have to know, don't think that everything you're going to propose to people that either you reached out to or they reached out to you, that the scope of work versus the dollar, is people are going to sign you up. It's not this, the probability is, there's smaller probabilities. So be ready for, number one, be ready for rejection. You just say, I got this proposal out, I'm confident, but don't count your pennies before you have it in the bank. I mean, you can't do that. So you just have to be ready for that. And honestly, it's really up to you to understand that rejection is part of the game. It's part of the game. It's not rejection. It's a tough word, but I hear what you're saying.
I'll give you an example, and I'm going to relate this to people that may not be in terms of wanting to open up a business. I'm currently looking for a job, right? I'll use myself again as an example. So I'm a job seeker. I apply for a job that I feel I'm a great fit for, the company that I really enjoy. And I go to the first round of interviews and the second round of interviews and the third round of interviews. And I feel really, really strong. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling excited. I'm feeling motivated. And then I get the call. They went with a different direction. And now I'm really feeling deflated. What would you tell me?
So first of all, don't give up. Don't rely, even though it's maybe the dream job you wanted and you think you went through 3 interviews and your chances are really good. Don't stop there, because you have to, I would say, David, listen, I know you're excited. Don't get too excited until the offer's in front of you, but let's continue to call recruiters, because you want to have 4 job offers, not 1. Let's go after, interview 10, do it. Some of them might not be the ones you want. You need to work and get some money in the bank, David. I get it. You need to do it. So it might not be your dream job, but let's get, and a lot of times you'll take a job or offer that's less money and not really what you want to do, but things happen for a reason, and don't let that one optimistic excitement that you get be your only one. You have to have a lot of things in the fire because of that situation. Because I've been there, and it's the worst feeling. Oh my God, I'm going to get I did that with proposals and jobs, and I mean, proposal I've given, I was like, oh my God, this would be a great consulting gig, unbelievable, traveling, the money's right, and the next thing you know, so we're going to wait, or we found someone else, or you know what, my partners say no, so I get rejected more than, because I put proposals out, I don't actually go out looking for jobs. So from your standpoint, I would say, David, just don't count on it yet. Be excited. It's natural. You got to be natural. You're excited about it. But think on the other side, and it's not a negative thought. Say, all right, listen, what happens if I don't get this job? There's me and, the recruiter says, here's an example. Recruiter says, me or somebody else. I talked to the CEO. I think I got the job. And then you don't get the job. now you have to start over. So I wouldn't stop interviewing. I would just keep sending resumes out. Just be positive, because you can't. Otherwise, mentally, it really bothers you. It gets to you, and I get it, and because I've been there, and it's not fun. But I think you just have to be like, all right, listen. There's chances I won't get this. There's a good chance I will get this, but if I don't, I can't start over. Let's keep going. Let me keep sending resumes. Let's keep going online. ZipRecruiter. Some people just only like to use recruiters or executive search firms, which are fine. Pros and cons to that. So I would tell you that, David. Let's first of all, don't take it. Number one, don't take anything personal. It's not a personal thing. It's really not. People take it personal because personally you take it and say, "Wow, I have to supply for my family, and it's hard. Somebody else got the job." But just it's gone. Move on. Just move on. It's you gotta just keep going.
Yeah, and part of that is if you have several things in the fire, there's also things to look forward to, right? So if you get put down by the one thing, you at least have several other things to look forward to. But even if you're someone out there who's put out 70 job applications and you haven't gotten even a call back, same kind of idea of, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. Let's just call it what it is. It sucks. And the only way that you can not let that completely crush you mentally, I would imagine, is just staying positive and trying to see the light and continue to put coal on the fire and see what you can come up with. And I think that's really, and we've talked, the theme on this show has been a lot of mentality and mindset and like that. And Philip, you're talking right into that same idea of just keeping your options open and trying to look forward and trying to find the best way to stay positive. Because as soon as you listen, there's enough negativity out there between COVID and again, we just finished the election cycle and all these different things. There's enough negativity out there to crush you by itself. If you let something else crush you that you can at least try to control as much as you can, there's only so much you can control. And if you let the things you can control bring you down as well, there's little chance of hope.
Right. It's over. I mean, if you really, as tough it is mentally, and challenging to stay positive, you just, there's no benefit to the negativity, and you just have to be optimistic to yourself. And but again, back to the job. If you've sent out 60 resumes and not a bite, then I think it's not necessarily. It could just be that there are other candidates that got the jobs, or maybe your resume. So look at the resume. Maybe go to an expert on resume writing. Maybe it's maybe you don't interview well. Some people interview very well, but look into the company, look into how you interview, tactics and mannerisms, body language. I mean, just make sure you're better presented than anyone else, and then you can be real confident. It's not really a mistake you made or something you said. And even today on the executive side on higher end jobs, there's these behavioral tests you get to take. They're challenging, and some people aren't good test takers. And I don't particularly care for them because people aren't good test takers. And it is like the behavioral tests they put our executives through. They're brutal, and they show people's mentalities and business strengths of mentality and how strong they are mentally, but doesn't mean that they're bad executives. And they can be passed up for that. So I think I tell people, like, research the behavioral tests that these HR vice presidents have you make. You have to take them. I mean, there's answers to that. We have all the resources. You have the computer today. Google it. Go on LinkedIn. There's a lot of HR people. Ask them directly. Use those resources to understand what maybe, or ask a question. I sent out 60 resumes. I don't have one person interested. So I mean, be honest to yourself and say, what can I do? Something I'm doing wrong, and eliminate that. If it's nothing you're doing wrong, then it's just, unfortunately, there's 60 other people that got that position, or maybe it's a follow-up. People don't follow up properly either. They don't meet to say thank you. Look forward to hearing from you again. Just basic, quick emails and some basic stuff people fail to do. So I think you have to be true to yourself and make sure you're really, really on top of your interview game.
Love that. And I mean, and it all ties back to the original, that entrepreneurial mindset, taking the extra step. Instead of just clicking the resume button, apply, it's stepping out and reaching out to somebody and saying hello. It's doing the research on the behavioral test. It's following up with them. It's, if you don't get a position, why didn't I get it? So that now you can use that information and better tailor yourself to the next opportunity that comes up. So, Philip, I think that from someone who has a lot of business experience and has run successful businesses, you brought a lot to the table today in terms of that mindset and ways that people can step out of that comfort zone. And even if they've never had their own business or led a business, they can use that same type of those same concepts in their job search. So give us a quick shout out to PSD Hospitality. What are you guys doing? How are you guys looking? And where can we find you?
So I'm sorry, you're asking me to shout out?
Yeah, just tell us about your company. Tell us about PSD Hospitality.
Yeah. So PSD, again, we started in September 2000, and as consultants or advisors, the main scope of our work is from concept development. So if David, if you want to open a restaurant, but you're not sure what concept, or you deliberating between French and Italian or whatever, we can do the concept development, do also the demographic work and all the research, the pre-opening plan of how you open a restaurant, and the pro forma side. The pro forma side's critical, but there's a certain way. Listen, and then any business is a certain way of doing things right and wrong. So the right way is the only way I know how to do it. So if someone hires me to open a restaurant, I'm going to tell them, training has to happen this way. It's depending on your concept, 3 to 4 weeks of front of house and 3 to 4 weeks back. It's a 6-week plan. It's going to cost you X dollars. And no, you can't take shortcuts. And that's another situation people get into. So PSD, and the other thing I mentioned strongly was the revitalization turnaround situation. That's something that I know confidently I could help, I would say 95% of restaurants. And the bottom line, service, culinary, I have all the resources. I've been doing this. I'm in the business 37 years out of college, but more so before that. So I would say over 40 something years. And I think, revitalization and helping people grow their concept, make it better financially, and also on the service side, front and back, a different menu, a better, I have a consulting chefs that work with me. And to me, it's not hard. To me, I go in with new set of eyes, and revitalization is great because I know, and I use my slogan, "My success is in your bottom line." And people ask me to pay me that way. I don't pay. I get paid for what I do. So I have a retainer. I work on monthly or weeklies. I don't get paid for how much money I save because I don't control your books. You want me to make me a partner? We could talk about it. But anyway, so franchising is the other thing, David. PSD. I did restaurant openings. I did business plans, which I also do business plans. Franchising is sales and operations. So there's 2 segments of franchise. Different world, whole within the industry, different world. Different.
Right.
You have, the FDD, the franchise disclosure documents, the registrations, the all the things you have to do to register a franchise and/or even to sell a franchise from lead generations. So, and then quality assurance is franchising is great, but you have to have quality assurance. You have to. So for Galaxy and Patsy's, I did both. I was a one-man show. We had 7 franchisees in the Gallagher's, and you travel, you do quality assurance, you talk to people that want to buy and try to sell them. So, franchise work is very, very, to me, it's great consulting work.
Awesome. Well, Philip, thank you so much for joining us today and bringing us your great insight from a successful business leader. I hope that a lot of people got a lot of out of this conversation because, again, it goes into that entrepreneurial spirit to whatever you're doing in your life. So thank you for joining us today.
Great. Thank you, David. Thanks for having me. Happy holidays. And if this is springtime, happy springtime.
Yes. Well, yes, we are recording this right before Christmas. We're in the Christmas week right now, but it probably won't come out till probably around the springtime because we have so many great shows in the tank, and I'm only releasing 1 a week. So this is episode 16. We just released episode 5. We're releasing episode 6 tomorrow, so we're 10 weeks away from Philip's show actually showing. But it's not going to be one that you want to miss. And again, we are just continuing to pile on such great content. But the awesome part is it's not very timely in the sense of we're not talking about current events. We're not talking about political events. We're not talking about scientific events. We're just talking about your story, which is fully your story from now through the rest of time. So whether you tell me it today or you tell me it 2 weeks from now, it all transpires across. And Philip is going to be in a great position when this show actually airs. I'm looking forward to staying in touch with him. And I hope you guys took something out of that, because again, yes, Philip may have been talking in terms that you may not understand because you've never owned a restaurant, you've never been in that executive level role. Maybe you don't care to be. Maybe you're someone who's just starting out, or you're someone who works the front desk for your whole career, which is perfectly fine. It really depends on what you want to be doing. So even if you don't understand the terms and the terminology that Philip was talking about, the concepts still translate. Make yourself an entrepreneur. Try to keep that positive mindset. Put a lot of coals on the fire. Accept rejection, that it's going to happen, that you're probably going to get 50 no's before you get the one yes, but the one yes is the one you're searching for, and the one yes is what's going to make the difference. So same thing in job searches. You're going to get, especially right now, 50, 60, 70 no's, but when you get that one yes, that could be what takes your career to the moon. So thank you again to Philip for joining us and being my guest. Thank you all for being my guest for another great episode. We'll be back next week with another great episode, and I think you're going to be really excited to hear. We're going to be talking to another business owner, but she actually comes from the hotel side, where she started her own business just this year. So we're going to talk about that, what went to leaving her company that she worked for to start this business, and then, of course, the mindset as she starts 2 months into it, and then COVID happens. So thank you all again, and check us out on all the different channels. Otherwise, we will speak to you next week. Thanks so much.